Background: listen to the following clip and answer the question on your sheet. Feel like I'm a fixin' to die rag. Country Joe and the Fish, Woodstock 1969. Your question: what does this tell us about what people back at home thought about the Vietnam War, as you pick up the lyrics, and what type of people are criticised in the song and why? The lyrics are provided down here and the link provided to the particular piece of music. Your extension task: what are the strengths and weaknesses of this source for the historian studying popular opposition to the Vietnam War? Richard Nixon then, and the war in Vietnam. Our objectives today then. How and why did Richard Nixon end the Vietnam War, and how successful was he achieving peace with honour? You will be able to describe why Nixon wanted peace and how he tried to do it. You will be able to answer this question using PEA. Until 1968, the majority of Americans had supported the war in Vietnam. The Tet Offensive, however, was a major turning point. On the Tet holiday, VC fighters attacked over 100 cities and military targets. The Tet was a disaster for the communists. They hoped the people of South Vietnam would rise up and join them. They simply did not do that, and in doing so, they lost 10,000 of their most experienced fighters. It was, however, viewed as a defeat by the Americans. 500,000 troops in Vietnam and spending in excess of $20 billion a year on the war failed to prevent Tet. How could the communists launch a major offensive that took the US completely by surprise? And US and South Vietnamese forces did recapture towns but needed an awful lot of artillery and air power in order to achieve this. Many civilians were killed. Despite it being a military victory, in the long term it was nonetheless a military defeat for the US. The consequences then of Tet. It convinced most Americans, rightly or wrongly, that the war had to be ended sooner rather than later, otherwise it would go on as a protracted study for years. It showed Johnson that the war could not be won militarily. Johnson decided not to stand for re-election, and this was seen as an admission of failure. Subsequently, Richard Nixon narrowly was elected president, beating Hubert Humphrey, Johnson's vice president, by a narrow margin of 43% to 42% of the popular vote. In your task then today, you are to construct your information in order to complete this diagram. Why did he want to end the war? How did he end the war using Vietnamization? What is the notion of peace with honour? How did he escalate the war in order to achieve peace with honour? And what were the consequences of the 1972 election?